this space is not available. 5 words and a failure tonight for a much anticipated conversation between Elon Musk and Donald Trump. That X event that everyone was supposed to watch, well, it broke the internet, and not in the Beyonce kind of way. If you are trying to click over to watch that Trump-Musk talk, which I believe is still ongoing, for most of the time you couldn't do it for about 40 minutes. And when the interview finally did get underway, Trump went into his normal stump speech, including more Kamala Harris insults. This was, Tara, just maybe an allegory of what's been going on with the Trump campaign for some time.
Yeah.
40 minutes on hold. They start off, it's meandering, and he's doing exactly what a lot of people are trying to tell him not to do, which is attacking Harris not on substance, but just because she exists.
Yeah, I mean, this shouldn't be news. This is what Trump does. He does the complete opposite of what everyone else tells him to do. He's petulant and intransigent, and he thinks that he's his own best campaign manager, consultant, political communications guru, and there's a reason why he's now losing. There's a reason why Kamala Harris, the swing in the polls, that Kamala Harris has overtaken him in swing states. People are tired of this act. It's a Vegas lounge act now. He needs new material. And the insults are something that, particularly for moderates and moderate women who are an important constituency, if Trump thinks he's going to win this time around, they don't want to hear this. And so the people who have been running his campaign are very smart, veteran political operatives, and now they're facing the time, the honeymoon period of keeping a disciplined Trump together is over. This is Donald Trump unleashed. He's going to do what he wants to do, and it's not working for him. And the polls show why it isn't.
I'm going to play a little bit of what he's been saying on this X stream. He talks about Harris and really seems to be still grappling with the fact that she's now the candidate and it's not Joe Biden anymore.
They're doing it right now while this third-rate phony candidate. Don't forget, I beat Biden. He failed in the debate miserably. We cannot have a Democrat. We cannot have her. She's incompetent. She's as bad as Biden.
Another part that was really funny on the interview was when he was talking about how he beat Biden. And he was like, right after the debate, they said on CNN that my performance was spectacular. And then they stopped talking about my performance and started talking about how bad Biden was. And one thing that I think Trump doesn't understand is that his performance was not spectacular at all. As a matter of fact, his performance was ass on that debate. It's just that Biden was so much worse that people didn't even pay attention to the insanity. Like, people did not pay attention to Donald Trump's 10 million Guatemalans are doing rapes every moment in America type narratives, because everyone was in utter shock, in a state of panic that the fucking president was mentally decrepit. That's it. He got lucky in that situation, which is why I find it additionally odd that he keeps doing a little bit of revisionist history there. Ain't nobody thought his performance was great. As a matter of fact, the Democrats kept chirping, and even the liberal commentators kept chirping about how why is nobody paying attention to Trump's lies? He kept lying over and over again. And it's because nobody cared about that, because the other thing was the house is on fire, you know?
It's like watching Grumpy Old Man or something. I don't mind attacking a person for their policies or their positions, but he's just sort of griping just because she exists, to your point. And I think we know why he's griping, because she exists. She's a black woman. And everything that I've seen in the course of his career, and I know that he has black women in his circle, and I know he's appointed Omarosa and all of that. I know all of that background. But I also know when he's confronted and being held accountable by black women, time and time again, he is shown to be someone who is uncomfortable in that situation. And I think he's complaining more because it's Kamala Harris, a black woman, than any other factor.
There's nothing that he's saying about her, however, that wasn't actually said by Biden campaign personnel in leaks to the press for months and months before the hot swap unfolded. For literally about 3+ years, you had folks around President Biden who were leaking against, undermining, characterizing Kamala Harris as a disastrous, underprepared.
How do you know this?
Because of extensive reporting, and drawing on White House sources. How come
former President Trump doesn't know this? If you've known for 3 years this woman was coming, And now she's here, and you're confused about what to do.
I'm sorry, I wasn't sufficiently clear. What I'm saying is that what he is saying now, when he is diminishing her capacity and what have you, these were all things that were standard talking points coming from Democrats who were anxious about her weaknesses. Now, only over the last month or so has the narrative entirely changed.
Bro, like, you can't just like be upset that the media is responding to the momentum that Kamala Harris has been able to put together. He's not wrong in terms of like Kamala's weaknesses. These are things that I've also personally mentioned, right? But like, there is one aspect of this that these guys are just like very upset about, which is that people don't care. That's how much they, one, don't mind the Democratic Party's platform, that like a generic Democrat leading the ticket is good for them. And that's how much they despise Joe Biden, okay? Because you hate black women too? Yes. That's what it is. Like, they don't care. People don't care about it. A lot of people were just like, bro, I don't want Biden. He's so fucking old. People vote on vibes, okay? People vote on vibes. And the vibes were atrocious with Brandon. Bro said that was a joke so fast. You got them boys terrified. Yeah, good, because I hear that all the time. And I never want anybody to do that. There's the new Hasan Twitter complaint today. Yeah, his vibes are great. What are you talking about? Brandon's vibes? Brandon's vibes are not great, okay? Brandon's vibes were not great at all. All right, let's continue.
About this because the press no longer felt obliged to protect President Biden.
Are you suggesting then this is originating because Donald Trump is following the intel of Democrats, and this is based solely upon the intel of Democrats and not some long-standing representation of how he feels about American people since the 1970s?
Okay, I think what he's suggesting is that this is not just off of what Democrats have said, but Democrats have also said some of the same things Trump has said. And so him saying these things is not something new that no one's ever said before, that she's incompetent. And you can point to the policies. You can look at so many policies throughout this administration that she has to own that will hurt her in swing states.
The idea, just to be clear, I mean, I understand that maybe there were some Democrats privately who were nervous about Harris, but I don't know that you have Democrats calling her phony, incompetent, third-rate candidate.
That's what I was about to say.
That is well
I must have missed where Democrats called her a bum. I must have missed where they questioned her ethnicity. I must have missed when Democrats called her low IQ and stupid.
Yeah, they didn't do any of that. But the Democrats were obviously worried about Kamala Harris's weaknesses. As a matter of fact, I would say that is the reason why Joe Biden chose her. Shrimps for Bernie, thank you for the 5, get the subs. That's part of the reason why Joe Biden picked her as the VP, because he did not want a VP that could like outshine him. Okay. But having said that, currently the momentum behind Kamala Harris is very real. And of course the media is going to cover it because it's happening. It's a real thing that's happening. Of course the media is going to fucking talk about this unique, historic change up in a fucking ticket 80 days out of a goddamn election and what the consequences have been, both positive and negative, mostly positive for the Democrats. Like, you can't just sit there and be like, it's no fair. Why don't you talk about Kamala Harris's weaknesses? Like, what do you mean? That's not the story. That could become the story if she fails. Like I said, this momentum is very real. And you can either lean into it and keep putting out daggers, okay? The DNC is going to be a big deal to continue this momentum, okay? Or you fuck it up big time and you do the old school Democratic Party instincts and you don't lean on like a Waltzian momentum with progressive policies, showing America that these progressive policies are not radical at all, that these guys are fucking weirdo losers who keep complaining about like actually good, solid progressive policies. And that's it. New Florida poll, Trump, Republican 52, Harris at 44, Kennedy at 3. That's actually kind of surprising that RFK only has 3% in Florida. I would have expected him to have much higher in Florida. I would have thought that would be his state, you know? It's kind of shocking. Having said that, let's continue.
And all of the litany of awful insults that Donald Trump has levied against Kamala Harris since she's been in the race.
But did you miss when she couldn't even get a couple percentage points in 2020 to make it to the first primary?
This isn't the first time Donald
Trump
wasn't
wildly popular.
It doesn't matter. She's the vice president of the United States, and she's beating Donald Trump right now. So, but what also we are
all
not,
that matters is
what
what
also
happens
we're
on November 5th.
is that Donald Trump's history.
Oh, so polls don't matter any longer. Everybody does this copium. It's mind-numbing to me, okay? The Trump team was literally posterizing all the polls when they were cooking Biden. But the moment that this switch up happens and the polls reflect that reality, and the momentum shifts in the other direction, they're like, oh, polls don't matter. And it's the same as like the Biden dead enders in the liberal media space that kept saying polls don't matter, that Biden is losing, polls don't matter. It's so funny. It's just like, bro, look at the fucking polls. Look at why people are responding in the way that they're responding. Sometimes it is going to be a genuine crisis that you can't actually message out of, okay? For Donald Trump, a person with maxed out name recognition, it is a little bit of a genuine crisis because like it's hard for him to squeeze out new demographics. What's he gonna do? Go after fucking young people? Like, is he gonna be able to convince young people to go out and vote for him? Like people that don't remember what it was like to be a full-grown adult under his administration, under his rule. It's just, there's no pivot point for Trump. It's very difficult for him. And he's also flailing.
History of insulting women is very long. As a matter of fact,
and her history of failing
is
long as well when it comes to these policies that
how
matter.
many times when he was at the bully pulpit, he insulted women
what we know is
journalists
that
repeatedly, including you, Abby, who he also called stupid, which you're not. You went to Harvard, and you are far from that. And this is what Donald Trump does. He doesn't like to be held accountable. So because he is now in a position where he now is being held accountable for what he said, we know already that he has a history of being a sexist, and now he cannot
This is base
grapple
management.
with the fact.
These are not the arguments that are actually effective for Kamala Harris.
Oh,
If you look
no?
at the
Why is
recent,
she up
for
11
example,
points?
Reid Hoffman's group Blueprint has
He's not wrong. Talking about like Donald Trump being misogynistic or whatever, that doesn't matter. It hardens his support in his base who are looking for that and find that to be good. There's a difference between like just consistently saying Trump is like a misogynist. Everybody fucking knows that. People have already literally made up their minds on this. This is why I always say, don't ever fucking bring that up. Just don't. Everybody knows it. Nobody gives a shit. Okay. People already made that point over and over again. Talk about abortion instead. Talk about how Trump's weirdo behavior and Trump's misogyny actually ends up harming women directly. Okay. Talk about how it has already harmed women because people know he's a misogynist. Okay. They know he won the white women vote by 52% twice. Okay. Twice. He won the white women vote again. So if you want to fucking eat away at that base of support, just simply talk about the policies and simply talk about how all of those things are already harming people. I wrote about this a while back. I was like a couple days ago where I was like, listen, Democrats, if they want to win, they got to keep talking about what they're going to do for people and what they have done for people so far and maybe what the Republicans have done to the population. Okay. If Democrats want to lose, they talk about how like sexist and misogynistic Donald Trump is. And they talk about the identity of the candidate without tying it back to like the actual policy positions. The underlying misogyny is always going to be there. Most people are misogynistic themselves. We live in a patriarchal structure. Women, a lot of women also have a tendency to have internalized misogyny. You can't, this is not a good argument, okay? The better argument in this situation is to be like, he's weird, he's gross, he's a loser, but also, of course he's saying this kind of shit. After all, look at what his administration did to women's reproductive rights, okay? That shit did not work for Hillary Clinton at all. And as a matter of fact, Joe Biden didn't do that because he was an old white guy, okay? That was one of the most like refreshing aspects, in my opinion, in terms of winning a fucking election that the Democrats did with the Biden camp. They didn't do any of that. They were forced to run on issues in a little bit, in some respects, because they didn't have the identity picks that they could like point to. Okay. Biden still tried to be like, oh yeah, I hired Kamala because she's a black woman, whatever. It doesn't matter. Okay. Even in that situation, he literally still was like being a old racist white guy. Okay. People don't care. I don't think, and I'm serious about this. I don't think anyone in the margins, because there are people who obviously are like, yeah, Donald Trump's a misogynist, he's racist, whatever. But I don't think there's a single fucking person in the margins who's like, ooh, Donald Trump is a misogynist. I guess he's lost my vote then. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, nobody likes it. Nobody likes this argument. Okay.
Described what is effective for Kamala Harris. What is effective for her is taking positions that are the positions.
He isn't harming women. What? Yeah, dude, totally. Every time like a 14-year-old victim can't get a fucking abortion in a red state, that's actually not harming women at all. That's actually really positive for women. Okay. super sick.
That would be endorsed by Joe Manchin and by Bernie Sanders, being perfectly down the line. I will protect Social Security and Medicare. It is not actually attacking Trump. What you guys are doing right now is, helpful base management right now, but it actually isn't something that moves the needle. What you see is actually this kind of base management doesn't actually have much of a.
Why does pointing out his misogyny not work, but pointing out his blatant racism does? You say women can be internally misogynistic, but it's obvious that people can also be internally racist because there's levels to it. One, I think that misogyny, like patriarchal attitudes, is a higher order. There's like permissible misogyny that is running rampant throughout American society in general. Part of that is because 50% of the population is women, whereas 50% of the population isn't black or Latino. Okay. So it's a 50-50 split. So it is like way more pervasive and therefore way more permissible to just be like, regular misogynistic. Whereas when you go above a certain point of racism, it tends to gross people out. Just like when you go above a certain point of misogyny, it grosses people out. Like the difference between Donald Trump saying a litany of different things like Kamala Harris is a pretty woman, like that doesn't hit that fucking marker. But JD Vance talking about women having to breed does, right? You've all of a sudden cast aside like the normal existing misogyny that every normal person could potentially experience or feel on a daily fucking basis. And you've now cast aside dog whistles. You are just completely daggering. You're lasering in on the main point of contention. So like 50% misogyny may be acceptable, but 80% isn't. But 50% racism isn't acceptable. So it's the same 50% of acceptable misogyny, but not acceptable for racism. There's a difference of like how far you can go with your racist sentiment before people go, oh, that's gross, versus how far you can go with your misogynistic sentiment before people go, oh, that's gross. This stupid nonsensical idea that women themselves can't be misogynistic is the reason this country makes no progress in actually improving the lives of women. Just because someone is a woman doesn't mean they're not going to harm other women. Nancy Reagan literally hurt this country as a first lady. Yeah.
Material effect. Anti-Trump arguments are actually so played out, so tired.
It's an interesting point that Reinhard is making about base management on the left, but really it seems also that Trump is doing some base management on the right, and there are people in conservative circles who think that the constant attacking of Harris is not working, and this is what they're trying to tell him at this point now publicly.
Stop questioning the size of her crowds and start questioning her position when it comes to what did she do as Attorney General on crime.
When Trump attacks Harris personally rather than on policy, Harris's support among swing voters rises, particularly among women.
Not a good idea if you want to attract suburban women who can make or break your campaign.
Yeah, Trump calling her a bitch, by the way, which I don't think he'll ever do in public, like on the record, that goes beyond permissible misogyny, okay? That will probably piss off people. That would go beyond like the normal order of misogynistic shit that you say. It's just like, it's too mask off. It grosses people out.
I mean, Madison, that's pretty straightforward. I mean, these are people who otherwise would be giving Trump advice. They think that he is on the wrong track here.
Well, and I talked about this on your show on Friday about the fact that many Republicans across the country are concerned about the missed opportunities that we continue to see, not just from President Trump, but from other Republicans that are out there on the stump for the president and for some of the down ballot races as well, that they just simply aren't talking about these policies that are going to swing voters in states like Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Georgia. We need to be hearing more about those policies. Like I mentioned, some of the policies that people don't feel the vice president is strong on. These are the things that I don't think we hear enough about. That's what can swing these voters.
Well, I can tell you that the evidence that we've seen already in the polling in swing counties like outside of Philadelphia, Bucks County, Delaware County, Chester counties, you see that there are moderate women there who are not comfortable, Republican right of center women who are not comfortable with Donald Trump, not comfortable with the attacks against women, not comfortable with the extremist agenda in Project 2025 on issues on women's reproductive health and IVF.
He did not call her that. You got duped by the golf clip. There are reports of him doing it behind closed doors. I believe it, but the golf cart clip is not the clip that you think it is, okay?
And no-fault divorce and voting rights, all of these things, these attacks on women that are really extreme, they're not comfortable with that. And we're seeing that, and we just saw it today in the New York Times Siena poll, that these places are shifting. Women in these places, in these suburban counties that Donald Trump needs to win, they are not comfortable with that.
La, 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 no